Throughout the years, Doctor Who has had many showrunners, from Russell T Davies to Robert Holmes and even Douglas Adams. These are all amazing writers, and Doctor Who has attracted some of the greatest writing talent the UK has to offer. But here's why I think that Steven Moffat, the much maligned showrunner towards the end of his run, is probably one of the best showrunners Doctor Who has ever had. And here's why. When taking over the show in 2010, he not only had the unenviable task of taking over Russell T Davies, the person who was responsible for rebooting the show back in 2005, he had to replace one of the most famous doctors to date. He had to recast David Tennant. And this caused a lot of problems in the early days, because who could take over from David Tennant? And the funny thing was, the BBC was even thinking of cancelling the show because they didn't know if anyone would be able to accept anyone other than David Tennant in the role. We must also not forget at the time when the first concept images of Matt Smith as the Doctor came out, he didn't look really good. He looked twee and was dressed all in black, which didn't bode really well for the fans who didn't know who Matt Smith was in the first place. The casting of a young and eccentric Doctor was very weird, but not one out of the blue and unusual for Doctor Who, since Peter Davison before him was one of the youngest Doctors to ever take the role. This is not a weird decision on his part, and I think the casting of Matt Smith in hindsight is probably one of the best decisions Moffat could have made. People were understandably worried as Matt Smith was the youngest Doctor to date, and many people didn't know if he had the acting ability to pull off such an amazing character. But how wrong we were. From the minute the 11th hour started and Matt Smith jumped onto our screens, we were all proven wrong by this amazing Doctor, young and eccentric in his actions, but with so much age and wisdom behind his eyes. In my opinion, Matt Smith is probably one of the best portrayals of the Doctor to this date, and I feel like only Peter Capaldi can even go above this span. The 11th hour was nothing less than extraordinary, and quelled all my fears about a new Doctor almost immediately. I was always excited to what this showrunner could do, as Moffat had written some of the best episodes of New Who when Russell T Davies was in charge. We can all remember having night terrors when we saw the gas mask children come on the screens in his first stories, and the weeping angels used to terrify me as a kid. From the moment the Doctor called back the Atraxi from the hospital after defeating Prisoner Zero and made his big speech whilst I Am the Doctor started playing, all my fears were crushed, and I knew that we were in for something amazing in this season, and boy were we. The season overall was an amazing season, with the only two missteps that I can see being the Lodger and Victory of the Daleks, which are all enjoyable in their own right. The storyline, The Cracks in the Wall, was amazing, and I love the ending two-parter. His Season 5 two-part finale is probably one of the best finales in the show's history. First, the Pandorica opens has one of the best Doctor speeches in the entire history of the show, a great storyline, and an amazing twist at the end, when the Pandorica wasn't a trap for someone, for a great warrior, it was a trap for the Doctor. An amazing storyline, and I loved the bittersweet ending, where the Doctor gets locked in and the universe dies around him. It's probably one of the best endings to a season that we could ever ask for, and was topped in the second episode of the season finale. For as nonsensical as the Big Bang episode could seem, it was amazing, and I've always enjoyed Moffat's time travel plots, as they all come together in the ending and they feel really satisfying. Whilst the ending may be a Moffat ex machina, where Amy just imagines the Doctor back into reality, I can forgive it given that the episode until that point was genuinely amazing and I enjoyed every second of it. A year later and Season 6 premiered, and my god, the first 10 minutes into it and Moffat had the balls to kill off the fucking Doctor, which would lay the groundwork for the season's arc, The Death of the Doctor, which, in my opinion, is one of the best season's arc, besides its nonsensical ending and its Moffat ex machina type style getaway. It's probably one of the strongest season arc, as the Doctor struggles to find out why he has to die. But, to be honest, this has to be one of the weaker seasons in Matt Smith's 10 years, with episodes such as The Curse of the Black Spot and Night Terrors being lackluster episodes, but I will say this, no matter how bad they got, they were still pretty enjoyable, and I could sit down and enjoy all of season 6. Besides the ending episode, I don't think there is a bad episode put to it. It's fucking amazing. I will admit that in this season, Moffat cranked the craziness up to 11, with a mad story arc, which probably would have worked if he didn't have to put a sort of literal fucking Deus Ex Machina at the end. But I guess he wrote himself into a corner with the first episode with him dying, and they couldn't really do much about it because of the way they wrote it. Other than that, it was a pretty solid season, and I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoy nonsensical story arcs, massive story arcs that span ages, like the Silence and the Crack in the Wall story arc. Fucking brilliant. I love those types of story arcs, and although they can get a bit nonsensical at times, if it's all done well, they can be amazing. It's quite amazing looking back, seeing that even in the beginning, the first episode, where Prisoner Zero mentions Silence Will Fall, Moffat was clearly laying the groundwork for what would be Matt Smith's final episode, which I think is amazing, and looking back just makes these episodes so much better. Moffat clearly had a whole 10-year planned out for Matt Smith, and what he wanted that Doctor to do, and how he wanted that Doctor to end. Even the mention of Trenzalore at the end of season 6, it's amazing, and he clearly knew what he was doing, which I think makes these episodes and this time as showrunner even more amazing. Skip forward a year and we see the start of Series 7A. One of the strongest in my opinion, as its whole arc is basically saying how the Ponds are moving away from the Doctor and eventually getting rid of the Ponds altogether at the 7th episode. I think overall that Series 7A is one of the strongest in the whole series of Moffat's tenure, with amazing character writing and honestly one of the best goodbyes to a companion yet. But problems will arise as we head forward another year. Fast forward to 2013, the 50th anniversary of Doctor Who and the beginning of Series 7B, what many people consider to be one of the worst half of seasons in Doctor Who history. In fact, it's probably its own season, given that it's completely different to Series 7A. It introduces companion Clara Oswald for the third time, a companion who is still divisive in the Doctor Who circle to this day. Her whole purpose in the TARDIS was to save the Doctor in the future. Her whole character was a plot point, and she doesn't get really much character development through the show, and through the Series 7B. I am willing to give this season a pass though, considering it's shot quite well, and to be honest, I can still find it a very fun and enjoyable season. But it doesn't mean that the writing wasn't bad. It was horrible for most episodes. But I am willing to give this a pass as well, due to that Moffat was probably busy focusing on the 50th anniversary and the subsequent time of the Doctor afterwards, which are, in my opinion, are some of the strongest episodes Moffat has ever written, and some of the strongest episodes throughout the show's entire history. Day of the Doctor is probably one of the best episodes in the show's history. Shot amazingly, and given the budget of a movie, Doctor Who is allowed to do whatever it wants. And the reintroduction of David Tennant and John Hurt as the War Doctor is probably one of the best parts of this episode, as we see the Time War and what the Doctor did to end it. It's amazing, with great character drama and probably one of Moffat's best writing throughout the entire show. I can't fault it, and it also saves Clara Oswald by giving her a job as a school teacher. This anchors her to Earth and gives the companion more of a purpose. It's amazing, and probably one of the best episodes you will ever see of Doctor Who. Moffat then follows up that episode with the amazing time of the Doctor, when the Doctor finally reaches Trenzalore, and he finally has that amazing battle, and we see the Doctor age and almost die before he is saved by the Time Lords. This is an amazing story, and closes up all of Moffat's story arcs from the 11th Doctor's time, paying all of his debts that he hadn't paid throughout the seasons. It's fantastic. An amazing farewell to Matt Smith. But not only does it say farewell to Matt Smith, it introduces one of my other favourite iterations of the Doctor to this date, Peter Capaldi. When Peter Capaldi was announced as the 12th Doctor, many younger fans, such as myself, didn't understand, as he was an old man and the Doctor had always been young, considering that most of us didn't have that much knowledge on the classic series at that point. But by God, was he one of the best Doctors I have ever seen. This leads me on to one of my other favourite introductory episodes in Doctor Who history, Deep Breath. Whilst it sometimes can be self-referential to a fault, it was always enjoyable. And I thought Peter Capaldi was great as his first time as the Doctor. And Matt Smith's call at the end, basically to reassure younger fans such as myself and other fans who were unconvinced by Peter Capaldi that this man is the Doctor. Series 8, whilst not perfect, is a great season of Doctor Who, with the only 2 bad episodes being In the Forest of the Night and Kill the Moon, but even those have great character arcs. I love this more dark and brooding and serious style to this Doctor. It's amazing, and I think Series 8 is probably one of the best open seasons for a Doctor, with standout episodes such as Flatline and Mummy on the Orient Express. And I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed Missy as the Master, and the overall season arc was amazing. You can tell that Steven Moffat is going to be more experimental with this Doctor, trying to take him into a direction that has never been done before since Colin Baker. I think that it was an amazing idea, and I really love this interpretation of the Doctor, especially Peter Capaldi, who is probably one of the strongest actors to ever take on the role, with some of the best speeches that ever came out of the Doctor's mouth. It's amazing, and I think Peter Capaldi deserves more love from the fandom than he gets. I think Steven Moffat really tried his best to pull out some major changes to the Doctor, and to make sweeping changes to the show, but I will agree that not all of them were good. A year later and we start season 9, probably one of my favourite seasons of Doctor Who to date. Whilst that is probably considered a controversial opinion, I think that it is one of the most experimental, with most of this season being comprised of 2-parters, with amazing 2-parters such as the Flood 2-parter by Toby Whithouse. And also we have Heaven Sent, probably one of the best episodes of Doctor Who to date. But there are huge misses, such as the character of Me by Maisie Williams, which is probably one of the worst characters ever, and also Hellbent, the worst episode and worst season finale of Moffat's tenure. It's all crazy, and it brings back Gallifrey for no reason whatsoever. It makes no sense to me, and honestly, I just don't see why the Doctor would do that. I know the Doctor's meant to be a bit more brooding and dark, but it wouldn't make sense for him to do all the stuff that he does in Hellbent. And the fact that he brought back Clara is probably one of the worst things, as Clara should have stayed dead, which would have made more sense. But honestly, overall I believe season 9 is an amazing season of Doctor Who, and deserves more praise from the fandom than it actually gets. I feel like Steven Moffat got a bit overambitious with that season finale, and tried a bit too much and bit off a lot more than he could chew. But other than that, it's a perfect season, in my opinion, of course. A year passed without no Doctor Who, and then season 10 burst onto our screens, which I believe is Moffat's strongest season to date, with amazing episodes such as Pyramid at the Centre of the World, and also the season finale, which I think is probably one of the best season finales ever, and I love the fact that it's a multi-master story, with John Sim and Michelle Gomez both getting to play the Master, which I think was a brilliant idea on Moffat's part, and they also bring back the Mondasian Cybermen, which I really love. I love the Mondasian Cybermen and their design. The Doctor Falls is an amazing episode, probably one of the best shot, best directed, best written and best acted in Peter Capaldi's tenure. Steven Moffat pulls out everything he can to make this episode amazing and make this a Cyberman-filled adventure. Although the Master is relegated to a bit of a chump in their own story, I don't really mind that, as it gets to show how Missy has become a better person from being with the Doctor. It's an amazing episode, and probably one of the best ways that we could have ended Moffat's tenure. The last episode I will talk about is Twice Upon a Time, Peter Capaldi and Steven Moffat's final episode. It introduces Peter Capaldi, who is refusing to regenerate after coming outside of the TARDIS. We then meet David Bradley, who is playing the First Doctor, who also refuses to regenerate. There is no villain in this episode, there is no enemy to fight, there is nothing. There is just the Doctor, who is running out of time, and his counterpart who is also refusing to regenerate. I think this is a great, heartwarming story, and the speech at the end is probably one of the best ways Peter Capaldi's Doctor and Steven Moffat could have left the show. An amazing final episode for an amazing showrunner and an amazing Doctor. In conclusion, I think the Moffat era is probably one of the best eras in Doctor Who history. Never again will Doctor Who have such a strong writer like Steven Moffat. I think whilst it does have some low lows, when the Moffat era soars high, it can soar high above anything else Doctor Who has ever done before. And in my opinion, that's why Moffat needs to be cut some more slack than he is already given by the fans. I feel like Moffat, during the bulk of his tenure, took on probably too much work, which led to him becoming overworked. But that's just my opinion. If you have any others, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I love reading them, and if you like this, please leave a like, and why not subscribe if you're not. See you next time. Peace.